Hello, I'm John Weiler with the Sovereign Passage Assembly, and this is our daily brief for January 22nd, 2019. And this week we're on Parsha Bo, which means go, and the Parsha, or the portion of the Torah, is Shemot, or Exodus, chapter 10, verse 1 to chapter 13, 16. And yesterday we studied chapter 10, and we began by looking at the signs and then the judgments that occurred to, the signs that were given to Yashar'el through Moshe and then Aharon, and then the signs or the judgments given to Mitsrayim through Moshe and Aharon, and what they relate to with the larger historical picture with the world, with the judgments that will be taken against Yashar'el, the upright of El, those who are being drawn out right now of Mitsrayim, and the signs that were given as the warning, and really all of these judgments as the warning for Yashar'el. And we talked about what each could mean as the warning or the sign for the upright. That wasn't heeded. Okay, it was not heeded. And we know all this already. We know the history, or we have an idea of the history. And we can see now, leading up to the advent of the Mashiach, and then for us living after that moment of propitiation, to where we can now come back into the relationship and be one, or Yahad, with Elohim. We have a drawing out that's happening today. So Elohim's Spirit is being poured out, and people like myself, who had no desire to even want to know the way of Yah, that's all that I think about now. So praise Yah, praise YAHUAH. So it's a wonderful time to be alive, and it's, what a wonderful, and to be chosen by YAHUAH to do things, to come in His name, is such a wonderful blessing, that once we have this understanding, or this just even the first thought that the way that we have been living is not right, it's not the way, we should immediately act on that, and to not embrace it and then continue in the Word to where we become the fulfillment of the way of YAHUAH, because that's what we're striving for. And the reality is, we're called to go and sin no more. So by Mashiach. And that's when his healing that occurs, which we see a lot of happening on the Sabbath, tells us through those He had healed or made complete to go and sin no more, which is breaking the relationship. And that's what we're called to do now. But we're going to continue to break the relationship, unfortunately. I have been seeking righteousness, as is put to us in His Word, for almost 4 years now, just under 4 years. And just within the last several months, has the relationship really truly been solidified within me, within my Ruach, with what is being said to us to do, what's in His Word, to truly be drawn out, like we see what's happening here with Yashar'el and Mitsrayim being taken away by the will of Elohim, or taken out of by the will of Elohim. And they're going to go into the wilderness, and they're going to be instructed and have the opportunity to change, have the name, the way of YAHUAH given to them through Moshe. And it's no different than us today, because we will have the name or the way of YAHUAH given to us through Moshe, right, which is His Word. So the Torah. So that's why we're studying the Torah right now, because these are the points that we want to learn and see and learn from. Because we are getting a lot of what not to do, or what went wrong, from the beginning up until now. And we see the grace of Elohim all throughout, the patience and long-suffering, and the forgiveness of YAHUAH. So we're called to be the completeness of the way of YAHUAH, because we're called to be as the Mashiach, to walk as he walked, and YAHUAH calls us to be holy as he is holy, and he tells us how to do that, shows us how to do that through the Messiah. So we're called to do that. And it's, I know myself, have come out of a world where we've just been told our whole lives that we're going to sin, and we can't help it. But that's not true. We can help it. Sin is breaking the relationship. It's not following the way of YAHUAH completely. That means that we're not giving ourselves completely over to the way of YAHUAH. So we've had it put to us as taking Jesus into our heart and having your own personal relationship with Jesus. But really what was occurring then is we're creating our own personal Jesus. We're not taking the what the Mashiach is. He's the word of YAHUAH incorporated into man. So he states himself that he's a fulfillment of the Torah. And the fulfillment is, the word is plerou in the Greek, but it means the completeness of, or to fill up, the fullness of. So he is the one that is the embodiment of the way of YAHUAH. So with that understanding, that means that we are to be the same, okay? But we've been told our lives, I've been told, my whole life, that we can't help sinning. But we can, okay? We can help it. It means that we have to want to not live and think and speak and do the way that we used to, the way that we're coming out of. And it doesn't happen all at once. We see these signs and then judgments. They're over a period of time. And in Torah, it doesn't tell us exactly how long that is. But it's a process with us, too. Because for us, especially coming out of the prison that we've found ourselves to be in, the darkness that we found ourselves to be in, it's permeated all parts of our life. And that's what we talked about yesterday, and related to the judgment starting from the frogs on. We got the waters being turned to blood, which is the word bringing death, the word of YAHUAH bringing death, being misused. And what we see Hasatan doing with it when he's tempting Yahusha in the wilderness, he's using the word of YAHUAH, but he's misusing it, taking it in vain. And that's, what we're in our relationship, our covenant, our berit, our relationship. We're called not to do that, but that's what occurs there. And Yahusha, the fullness of the way, corrects him with the word of YAHUAH. Because just as we are called, he knows the difference between righteous and the profane and common. Okay, the holy, the set apart, and the profane, just as we are to know. Okay, so he corrects the misuse of the word of YAHUAH with the correct use of the word of YAHUAH. So we see blood. Okay, so what is supposed to be life through the water, which is the word, is now blood. And then we have the frogs who go through the change of this metamorphosis, where they start out fish-like. They have gills to breathe underwater. And then there's this great change that occurs, and it's like taking one original creation and making the opposite of it. So where this frog breathes air through the water, he now develops lungs and legs and is up out of the water and breathes air. So we see the changing of the way of YAHUAH through the serpent. Okay, when that authority is thrown down by the Kohanim with the rod. So we see the changing of the word and the way. So it's not YAHUAH that's changing. It is the men who are hearkening to the words of the serpent and taking the way of YAHUAH, which Mashiach tells us the yoke is easy and the burden is light, and then changing it completely opposites to where the burden is heavy, okay? Because then it becomes the death, the blood, the death, which is sin. It breaks the relationship. All the while saying that this is the way, okay? And Mashiach was the advent here to show us that that is wrong, and this is the way. So we talked about that anyways, and we talked about the lice, the flies, what could be flies, the swarms, the swarming creatures, and how the choices that we make just permeate, parasitic. We have these desires for the things in our lives, but we just never ever get enough, and the whole time it's killing us, and it's all around us. It's in our eyes, it's in our ears, it's in our ruach, and then it manifests in our words and then our actions. So for us to be coming out of the world today, we have all of these curses as it's put to us, which is death. Okay, the curses of breaking the relationship, or not hearkening, not living our lives, not hearing and then doing what our Mashiach tells us and what our Creator tells us, YAHUAH, through His way, through the Torah. And it's death. And then we see the death through pestilence of the livestock. So then it leads to the loss. Okay, now we're looking at the results of the frogs, the lice, the flies. The results then is you're going to lose what I have given to you. Okay, for as far as Elohim. And we see that with we see with Mitsrayim, because Mitsrayim's wealth and power came through from Elohim through Yosef. And we'll see the same thing with Yashar'el as time goes on, in their wealth and their authority within the nations, their prominence within the nations will be taken, and they will be weakened. The locusts, the swarms will come, or the hail will come in and destroy what is theirs, and that's a sign of a direct affront by YAHUAH onto His creation. And then it's mixed with fire, which is the sign of the anger or the wrath of YAHUAH. It's put to us as anger is wrath. But it's what it is, because what's happening is His chosen, who He has drawn out, is going against what makes them chosen by YAHUAH, what makes them sanctified and set apart and righteous. So the things that occur with this, though, with the pestilence, the death of the livestock, the hail, it shows us that it's because of the actions, the spiritual direction of the people. Okay, we see it with Pharaoh and then his servants and all of Mitsrayim. We'll see it with Yashar'el. And then the locusts will come in and eat the remnant of what was left. We see Yashar'el with war, and then portions being taken away from them, people being taken away from them. And then darkness occurs, where Elohim turns His face from Yashar'el and the world. Okay, and then because we learn through His word that YAHUAH will not draw near to the unrighteous. And then we see the death. Okay, the death of the firstborn. Here is what we're going to talk about today. But we also see the death of YAHUAH's firstborn, which is Yashar'el. Okay, and they're taken out of the land that was promised, and they are dispersed amongst the nations around the world. So we talked at the end of Bereshith, where the tribes possibly could have gone. We focus mostly on Manasseh, Ephraim, and Judah or Yehuda, just because they seem to be the larger players in the world. They're blessed in a sense of being a great nation and a multitude of nation with Manasseh and Ephraim, and Yehuda will carry the scepter. And we know that Yeshua, our salvation, comes through Yehuda, which is our salvation, Yahushua HaMashiach. And so we see that with the carrying away, and then what has happened today to where we are, and now we have the outpouring of the Ruach HaKodesh, to where we can look back and see what has occurred that brought us to this point right now, and see what's occurred to us in our lives as we're coming out, and the challenges that face us. Because all of these things are permeated. Okay, the way contrary to YAHUAH, or the way of the serpent. It's all around us. But we have our shield, which is YAHUAH, and we have our Mashiach, who is our covering. So when we accept that gift of repentance and remission of sins, and we affix our eyes so that we're single in the way of YAHUAH, we stick with that, we will have the direction and the comfort and the understanding through His Word, through the Ruach HaKodesh. Okay, so what a wonderful time to be alive. So today, let's go to Shemot chapter 11. And I would ask that if you are watching here, that you get your word out and follow along. Don't ever tie yourself to the person speaking the words of YAHUAH. Always tie yourselves to the word of YAHUAH. Because very soon, depending on your individual spiritual desire, you will be speaking the words of living water, okay, to others. So don't tie yourself to the speaker, tie yourself to the word. Okay, so let's go to chapter 11, and we'll read it and we'll talk about it. And YAHUAH said unto Moshe, Yet will I bring one plague more upon Pharaoh and upon Mitsrayim. Afterwards he will let you go hence. When he shall let you go, he shall truly thrust you out hence altogether. Speak now in the ears of the people, and let every man borrow of his neighbor, and every woman of her neighbor, jewels of silver and jewels of gold. And YAHUAH gave the people favor in the sight of Mitsrayim. Moreover, the man Moshe was very great in the land of Mitsrayim, in the sight of Pharaoh's servants, and in the sight of the people. And Moshe says, Thus says YAHUAH, about midnight I will go out into the midst of the Mitsrayim, and all the firstborn in the land of Mitsrayim shall die, from the firstborn of Pharaoh that sits upon his throne, even unto the firstborn of the maidservant that is behind the mill, and all the firstborn of the beasts. And there shall be a great cry throughout all the land of Mitsrayim, such as there was none like it, nor shall it be like it any more. But against any of the children of Yashar'el shall not a dog move his tongue against man or beast, that ye may know how that YAHUAH puts a difference between the Mitsrayim and Yashar'el. And all these your servants shall come down unto me, and bow down themselves unto me, saying, Get you out, and all the people that follow you, and after that I will go out. And he went out from Pharaoh in great anger. And YAHUAH said unto Moshe, Pharaoh shall not hearken unto you, that my wonders may be multiplied in the land of Mitsrayim. And Moshe and Aharon did these wonders before Pharaoh, and YAHUAH hardened Pharaoh's heart, so that he would not let the children of Yashar'el go out of the land. So when we ended yesterday, it seemed that there was an end to this discussion with Pharaoh and Moshe. Because Pharaoh says to Moshe in chapter 28, chapter 10, verse 28, he says, Get you out from me, take heed to yourself, see my face no more. For in that day you see my face, you shall die. And Moshe said, You have spoken well. I will see your face again no more. But that wasn't the end of it. Okay, so YAHUAH said unto Moshe, He's going to bring one more plague upon Pharaoh and the Mitsrayim. And he says, Go tell the people you're going to go and borrow. It's what the word is, borrow. But we have to remember that where the riches and power came from was from Elohim, the Mitsrayim. So all of the things that they're going to be taking are given from Elohim. So this is just a transfer of wealth in a sense. So that's something that we should always think about too, because when we're looking at stuff as ours, we are starting to covet the things that we have and then what we want. But it's not ours. All right, none of this is ours. All that's given to us is by the will and as a gift from Elohim. So we are stewards, and that also includes our friends and family members, to include your children, all right, if you're parents. Okay, they're all given to you. You're the stewards of those, and by being a steward, you have a very high obligation and responsibility to be the light, okay, to be correct in the way of YAHUAH. And there's only one way to be correct in the way of YAHUAH, and that's to immerse yourself in the Word. So all aspects of your life is the way of Yah. So this transfer of wealth that we see here is going to be given from the Mitsrayim to the children of Yashar'el, and YAHUAH gave the people favor in the sight of the Mitsrayim, so they give them their stuff, it seems, without a fight. And the same was said of Moshe, in that he was very great, and we can see that as another challenge for us as those speaking the way, coming in the name of YAHUAH. And for what I started off with here is, don't tie yourself to the person. Tie yourself to the Word. Don't elevate man. Okay, that's really the key phrase right there. And if we think of ourselves as teachers, we're not complete in the way. Okay, because we have one teacher, and that's Mashiach. And he is the embodiment of the Torah that we're studying right now. So he shows us how to be and how to live. So we're not called to be teachers, we're called to be speakers of the way. Okay? And by doing so, we are giving water to drink. And for those who are drinking that in, then they become wells of living water, and they do the same thing. So it's a chain that is then being made here. So if any of us are looking to elevate ourselves as a teacher, then we are not complete in the way. Okay, how long will it be? How long will it be till you humble yourself? That's what is said to Pharaoh. So, how long will you refuse to humble yourself before me? That's chapter 10, verse 3. Okay, so there are still points in our lives, oh man, us, that we have not humbled ourselves to YAHUAH. Okay, so where Moshe here is very great in the eye of the people, he's coming in the name of YAHUAH. All right, all these signs and wonders are through him from Elohim. So the words that we're speaking right now is through the Ruach HaKodesh. So we have to remember that. Then he says to Pharaoh, because this conversation is still occurring, he says, all the firstborn in the land of Mitsrayim shall die, from the firstborn of Pharaoh that sits upon the throne, even unto the firstborn of the maidservant that is behind the mill, and the firstborn of the beasts. So the firstborn is the strength. Okay, for whatever reason. I don't quite understand that myself, but it is the strength. If we go back to Bereshith and Yaakov giving the prophecy, I guess, but speaking the words of YAHUAH, for the things that shall befall their people that come from the sons in the last days, in chapter 49 in Bereshith, he states, starts with Reuven, or Reuven, says, you are my firstborn, my might, and the beginning of my strength, the excellency of my dignity, and the excellency of my power. Okay, so it starts off with being the firstborn, my might, and the beginning of my strength, the excellency of dignity, and the excellency of power. And it speaks about him directly, and then his fruit, unstable as water. But the firstborn throughout that we've been studying in Bereshith, they are not the ones to carry the birthright. It's the Yachid, or the beloved son, that carries the birthright, which is the way of Yah, okay, of how to approach YAHUAH. And we were told here in the beginning of Shemot that they, as in Abraham, Yitzhak, Yaakov, did not know YAHUAH as YAHUAH. They knew him as El Shaddai, or El Almighty. But they still knew how to approach him. Okay, so there was not a completeness in the way of YAHUAH, because that completeness was not given. That completeness of YAHUAH was given through Moshe. But that birthright, which is the understanding of Elohim and the understanding of how to approach Elohim, was given to the Yaqid. So the firstborn we see as might. We could see Yishmael. All right, he was born from Hagar. And that was because Abraham and Sarah did not want to wait, okay? Did not fully believe the words of Elohim because they were so old. So that came through the handmaid, Hagar. And he became a mighty group of people, or a multitude of people, through Abraham. Yitzhak, there's Esau and Yaakov. Okay, Esau was a man of the field. He was a mighty man. He was a man of this world. And we learn, what we study, and it's beginning with Toldot, is that Esau is the end of this world. And Yaakov is the beginning of the world to come. But Yaakov was the Yaqid, the beloved son, who had the birthright. And then we talked about, the desire of man. And that's what caused, much of what we see now going up into the dispersion of Yashar'el, are the desire of the things of the world. The blessing of Esau, or who is Edom, and Edom, which is Adam, they mean roughly the same thing. So Esau is man. So the blessing of man has had been taken by Yaakov, and that caused a break in all the relationships, and ultimately the relationship with Elohim. Because we're going to see Yashar'el drawn out now, but we're also going to see that they don't follow. Okay, their ruach, their heart, okay, their spiritual direction is not single on the way of YAHUAH. And that eventually leads to the death of the firstborn. So, to continue on here, it says that from the maidservant that is behind the mill, the firstborn, which is the strength of everything. Okay, because YAHUAH has no regards for men, all right, for who it is. Because we'll see this now with Pharaoh supposed to be the greatest, this strong ruler. He's also thought of as a god, but he's not. And the whole world is going to be shown that. This powerful nation of Mitsrayim is going to be brought down to the bottom, brought very, very low. Everything's being taken from them right now. Now, and to include what will be their firstborn, their strength. So the same thing occurs to Yashar'el, who is Yah's firstborn son. Okay, so what we get here is the strength. They're dispersed amongst the nation, but it will be the Yaqid that will deliver. All right, will be the savior, the Yaqid, the beloved son. So, verse 7, it says, "But any of the children of Yashar'el, shall not a dog move his tongue against man or beast, that you may know that how YAHUAH puts a difference between Mitsrayim and Yashar'el." Now, we're being drawn out of the world. Okay, these judgments are occurring to Mitsrayim, because that's where the upright of El were residing, and then we're being drawn out of. We're being drawn out of the world now. So these judgments have been and will occur, will continue to occur, and but upon the whole world. So there is a difference between now, today, the nations that we've been dispersed in, all the nations of the world, and the upright of El. Okay, Yashar is the upright of El. Okay, there's a difference, and he is the one, YAHUAH, puts the difference, and that is to be holy as I am holy. Okay, so that's our mark on our forehead and our hand. Okay, so that's we're going to be learning about what the things that we do now through the way of YAHUAH that does separate us from the world. Okay, so there is a division, but that division is given through YAHUAH, through His Word. Okay, and then Moshe says, and everybody's going to come down and bow down and say, "Get out." And all the people that follow you, and after that, I will go out. That's what Moshe says. And then after that, I'm going to leave. And then Moshe left Pharaoh in great anger. And then YAHUAH said unto Moshe, Pharaoh's not going to hearken. He's not going to do it. And YAHUAH hardened Pharaoh's heart, would not let the children of Yashar'el go. Okay, then we're going to talk about the Passover, okay, and unleavened bread next, tomorrow. So that sets the stage right there of the firstborn. Okay, and now we know how that relates directly to Yashar'el, being the death of Yashar'el. So the firstborn. Let's turn to Psalm chapter 78. We're going to read that very quickly to show the state of mind of Yashar'el. Okay, so in Psalms chapter 78, "Give ear, O my people, to my Torah. Incline your ears to the words of my mouth. I will open my mouth in a parable. I will utter dark sayings of old, which we have heard and known, and our fathers have told us. We will not hide them from their children, showing to the generation to come the praises of YAHUAH and His strength and His wonderful works that He has done. For He established a testimony in Yaakov and appointed a Torah in Yashar'el, which He commanded our fathers, that they should make them known to their children, that the generations to come might know them, even the children which should be born, who should arise and declare them to their children, that they might set their hope in Elohim, and not forget the works of El, but guard His commandments, and might not be as their fathers, a stubborn and rebellious generation, a generation that set not their heart aright, and whose ruach was not steadfast with El. The children of Ephraim, being armed and carrying bows, turned back in the day of battle. They did not guard the covenant of Elohim and refused to walk in His Torah, and forgot His works and His wonders that He had showed them. Marvelous things did He in the sight of their fathers, in the land of Mitsrayim, in the field of Zoan. He divided the sea and caused them to pass through, and He made the waters to stand as a heap. In the daytime also He led them with a cloud, and all the night with the light of fire. He clave the rocks in the wilderness, and gave them drink, as out of the great depths. He brought streams also out of the rock, and caused waters to run down like rivers, and they sinned yet more against Him by provoking El Elyon in the wilderness. And they tempted El in their heart by asking meat for their lust. Yea, they spoke against Elohim and said, Can El furnish a table in the wilderness? Behold, He smote the rock, that the waters gushed out and the streams overflowed. Can He give bread also? Can He provide flesh for His people? Therefore YAHUAH heard this and was wroth. So a fire was kindled against Yaakov, and his anger also came up against Yashar'el, because they believed not in Elohim, and trusted not in His Yeshua, His salvation. Though He had commanded the clouds from above, and opened the doors of heaven, and had rained down manna upon them to eat, and had given them of the grain of heaven. Man did eat angels' food. He sent them meat in full. He caused an east wind to blow in the heavens, and by His power He brought in the south wind. He rained flesh also upon them as dust, and feathered fowls like as the sand of the sea. And He let it fall in the midst of their camp, round about their inhabitants, or round about their habitations. So they did eat, and were well filled, for He gave them their own desire. They were not estranged from their lust. But while their meat was yet in their mouths, the wrath of Elohim came upon them, and slew the fattest of them, and smote down the chosen men of Yashar'el. For all this they sinned still, and believed not for His wondrous works. Therefore their days did He consume in vanity, and their years in trouble. When He slew them, then they sought Him, and they returned and inquired early after El. And they remembered that Elohim was their rock, and El Elyon their redeemer. Nevertheless, they did flatter him with their mouth, and they lied unto him with their tongues. For their heart was not right with him, neither were they steadfast in his covenant. But he, being full of compassion, forgave their iniquity, and destroyed them not. Yea, many a time turned he his anger away, and did not stir up all his wrath. For he remembered that they were but flesh, a wind that passes away and comes not again. How oft did they provoke him in the wilderness, and grieve him in the desert? Yea, they turned back and tempted El, and limited the Holy One of Yashar'el. They remembered not his hand, nor the day when he delivered them out of the enemy. How he had wrought his signs in Mitsrayim, and his wonders in the field of Zoan, and had turned their rivers into blood, and their floods that they could not drink. He sent divers sorts of flies among them, and devoured them, and frogs which destroyed them. He gave also their increase to the caterpillar, and their labor unto the locust. He destroyed their vines with hail, and their sycamore trees with frost. He gave up their cattle also to the hail, and their flocks to the hot thunderbolts. He cast upon them the fierceness of his anger, wrath, and indignation, and trouble, by sending evil angels among them. He made a way to his anger. He spared not their soul from death, but gave their life over to pestilence, and smote all the firstborn in Mitsrayim, the chief of their strength in the tabernacles of Ham. But made his own people to go forth like sheep, and guided them in the wilderness like a flock. And he led them on safely, so that they feared not, but the sea overwhelmed their enemies. And he brought them to the border of his sanctuary, even to this mountain, which his right hand had purchased. He cast out the heathen also before them, and divided them an inheritance by line, and made the tribes of Yashar'el to dwell in their tents. Yet they tempted and provoked Elyon, and did not guard his testimonies, but turned back, and dealt unfaithfully like their fathers. They were turned aside like a deceitful bow. For they provoked him to anger with their high places, and moved him to jealousy with their graven images. When Elohim heard this, he was wroth, and greatly abhorred Yashar'el, so that he forsook the tabernacle of Shiloh, the tent which he placed among men, and delivered his strength into captivity, and his glory into the enemy's hand. He gave his people over unto the sword, and was wroth with his inheritance. The fire consumed their young men, and their maidens were not given to marriage. Their priests fell by the sword, and their widows made no lamentation. Then Adonai awoke as one out of a sleep, and like a mighty man that shouts by reason of wine. And he smote his enemies in the hinder parts. He put them to a perpetual reproach. Moreover, he refused the tabernacle of Yosef, and chose not the tribe of Ephraim, but chose the tribe of YAHUAH, Mount Zion, which he loved. And he built his sanctuary like high places, like the earth which he had established forever. He chose David, also his servant, and took him from the sheepfolds. From fallen the ewes great with young, he brought him to feed Yaakov his people, and Yashar'el his inheritance. So he fed them according to the integrity of his heart, and guided them by the skillfulness of his hands. So here we see up to the point of being in the land, in the ebb and flow of belief and unbelief. And it's very interesting because this ebb and flow has always been from this point that's just about to happen. The drawing out where Mitsrayim says, go, get away, take it and go and never return. The people never truly came out of Mitsrayim. They physically were there, and they did the things that YAHUAH said to do, which is a sign to us for the Mashiach, and how we approach with our Ruach now, did those things, but their hearts were far from YAHUAH. Their Ruach was far from it because of the lusts of the flesh. What they wanted, what they believed would occur what they felt that they needed, but did not guard his covenant, refused to walk in his Torah. So, for us, we're being drawn out too. Okay, this ended in death, the death of the firstborn. Now, the firstborn is the world. Okay, so they're dispersed amongst the nation, YAHUAH, at this time, 705, 580, 560 BC. Okay, so a couple thousand years has passed. And the nations of the world, the ebb and flow of the nations, the risings and fallings and driftings and shiftings, has occurred to what we see today. Okay, we have a multitude of nations of Ephraim, we have a great nation of Manasseh, and we have Judah, YAHUAH, possibly back in the land promised to Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov. So, here we are today. Now we can see the ebb and flow of belief, unbelief, all right, because there'll be portions where Yah would allow the judgments to occur, because everything that happens is to bring people back. That's repentance, to turn them back to his way, back to life. So that would occur, and the people would come back, would seek Elohim again. But then over that ebb, that period of time, because their hearts were not there, their desire, their desire, the Ruach was not there, they would drift away. And drift away to the point that darkness, and they grope in the noonday like blind men. And then death, okay? The taking away. So, we, though, today, because the firstborn was destroyed or died, okay, so now the world is in death, which is the serpent, okay, it's that authority, that rod that turned into the serpent. It's the blood, too, that's causing death, the word of YAHUAH that is being misused or taken in vain. So that's all around us. The Mashiach came and allows us now that opportunity back in, and the long-suffering or the patience of YAHUAH is giving us this opportunity today. It's given us from this moment, from Mashiach when he died and rose again, given from that moment until right now to repent. The entire world, okay, the entire world. So, that's not going to last forever, though. Okay, we're told that here in the writings of the apostles. It's not going to last forever. And our Mashiach will return, and he'll pick back up that rod and rule with a rod of iron, so one that is not going to be broken or cast away. So let's turn very quickly here. We're going to finish up with the Besorah of Yahuchanon, or the Gospel according to John. And we're going to start in the beginning with chapter 1. We're going to read through verse 14. Okay. So in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with Elohim, and the Word was Elohim. The same was in the beginning with Elohim. All things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. And the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not. There was a man sent from YAHUAH, whose name was Yahuchanon. The same came for a witness, to bear witness of the light, that all men through him might believe. He was not the light, but was sent to bear witness of that light. That was the true light, which lights every man that comes into the world. He was in the world, and the world was made by him, and the world knew him not. He came unto his own, and his own received him not. But as many as received him, to them gave he power to become the sons of YAHUAH, even to them that believe on his name, which were born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of YAHUAH. And the Word was made flesh, and tabernacled among us, and we beheld his glory, the glory as of the Yahid of the Father, full of grace and truth. The glory as of the beloved one, beloved Son of the Father. Okay? So, today, we see the light has come into the world. The light is the word of YAHUAH. And the light is the Messiah, who is the Word made flesh, came and tabernacled among us. So in the beginning was the Word, and the Word that was with Elohim, and the Word was Elohim. And the first words were, let there be light. And there was light, because in the beginning there was darkness, waters, and the Ruach Elohim hovered over the face of the waters of the deep. And it says, all things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. And the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not. Okay, so praise Yah for that specifically, because that's where we are. So darkness occurred, YAHUAH hid his face, turned his face away from Yashar'el, and the death of the firstborn occurred, and it's just been darkness, okay, up until Mashiach. And then the light came into the world, okay. It talks about Yahuchanon, the immerser, who is the Elijah, who is the one to call out, the herald, the call out, to make straight the path. But Yahuchanon, the immerser, was not the light, but was sent to bear witness of that light. That was the true light, which lights every man that comes into the world. He was in the world, and the world was made by him, and the world knew him not. Okay, because at this point is the serpent, right? The authority is thrown down. Death is around. This is all nothing but death. The world knows not the light, because the world is in complete darkness. But as many as he came to his own, and his own received him not. Okay, so we see that. The Yahudim, who were speaking the words of blood, the words of death, okay, not living water, as what we receive with the Ruach HaKodesh through Mashiach, but death, okay. They were doing the things that they see their father doing, who is the accuser, the devil, Hasatan. So they received him not, okay, because they were not of the light, did not want the light. But as many as received him, to them he gave power to become the sons of YAHUAH. He, Mashiach, gave us the power to become Yachad, or beloved sons of YAHUAH. Okay, so now we have that ability to enter back into our relationship. We have that choice through the death and resurrection, the propitiation of Yahushua HaMashiach, who is our Passover sacrifice, okay, our Passover lamb. And it's by his blood that we can enter in through the doorway of him, all right? So, and we're going to read that tomorrow. But because of that, that gives us the power to become sons of YAHUAH, or Yachad, or beloved sons of YAHUAH. Okay, the first death of the firstborn. It's the world in darkness. But now through the light that was made manifest, so Yahushua HaMashiach, we now have that ability or that power to become Yachad, or beloved sons of YAHUAH. Okay, and to give the account of the Basora, or the gospel, or the good news, Yahuchanon, or John, beheld his glory, the glory as of the Yahid, the beloved one of the Father, full of grace and truth. Okay, so we can see then, what has occurred, Mitsrayim, Yashar'el, into the state of the world today. We can see the things that we have come out of, and how all these judgments, the signs and wonders in the judgments, they relate directly to the things that we have come out of and are in the process of distancing ourselves from in our old lives, which is in the darkness, as we turn and are turning to the light. So we have our hope then. That's where we place our hope, is in our Mashiach, who is our Passover lamb. Okay, that's why we now can enter back into our marriage relationship, our covenant relationship, through the lamb, okay, the bride of the lamb. So it's just such a wonderful gift that YAHUAH has given to us today. Just think about this. We have the completeness of the Word, and we have the fulfillment of the way through the Mashiach, and we have the Ruach HaKodesh. We have everything that we need to be successful. And it's just up to us now to want to do that. We can be the completeness of the way of YAHUAH if we choose. And it's not easy. Not easy at all. I am not the completeness of YAHUAH. I sin. I break the relationship. And I'm very aware of it. But yet I still do it. And why? Why? I don't know. I don't know. And that's something that I struggle with and will continue to seek in His Word for the guidance and the strength to overcome the things that are causing that separation, that blockage. So I can draw nearer and I can be holy or set apart as YAHUAH is calling all of us to be. Okay, so we'll stop there for today. And I hope that these words of YAHUAH has blessed you as they have blessed me. And I hope that these concepts of being set apart for YAHUAH, making that distinction between His people and the rest of the world, does really resonate within us to the point that it's the most important thing for us. So none of the things of the world that we are trying to come out of, that importance now will die away, and we will live through the Mashiach, okay, through the Word. So hopefully that has blessed you as it has blessed me. And we'll be back here tomorrow to continue on with Parsha Bo. Thank you.